Good evening, everybody. We'll give it a couple of minutes before we kick off, just to let people join the Facebook Live. We'll see how long it takes for people to jump on and start watching.
Yeah, I mean, this is the first Facebook Live I've ever done, so...
They're always good fun. I love doing it. Evening. We're just going to give it a couple of minutes to get a couple of people on, and then I'll explain the format, explain how we're going to do it, and have a good chat. You can see the numbers popping up on the left, just about. Evening, if you're just joining us, we'll be kicking off in just a second. We'll give it 20 or 30 seconds or so, just for those who are joining us. I think we're into double digits now, so I can probably kick off. So, good evening, everyone. My name is Anthony Higginbotham. I'm your Member of Parliament, and this is one of my Facebook Lives. I do these periodically because I think it's a brilliant way for us to chat, for me to talk about some of the things I'm doing, answer some of your questions. But this time, I thought we'd do it a little bit differently to the way I've done it before. Normally, I just sit here on my own, look at the screen, try and manage the comments, respond, and all of that. But this time, I thought we'd do it a bit differently. So I'm interested in your thoughts on how it goes. And so I've got Councillor Jamie McGowan with me. He's one of your borough councillors here in Burnley. He works with me all the time. And he's going to act as your Andrew Marr. He's got the questions that you've submitted on Facebook so far. He'll be keeping an eye on the comments to get them to me and make sure I'm answering. And if I deviate too much, I'm sure he'll get me right and get me back on topic. So hopefully you enjoy. Give us your thoughts though at the end or as we go through. Comment if you've got questions. We'll try and get through them. Any I don't get to. Because of time, then I'll try and respond to some in the comments. Or as ever, if there's anything I don't cover or that you don't want to mention on a Facebook Live, drop me a message. Easiest way is going to my website, www.anthonyhigg.co.uk/contact. You can put everything in there. It comes straight to me wherever I am, and I'll look into it. So without further ado, Jamie, over to you.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me, Anthony. It's good to be with you tonight. And welcome to everybody watching at home. There's been a load of questions come in on Facebook. I've seen so many comments about a varied number of issues. Only the other day you asked, obviously Anthony asked to put your questions in. I'm sure we'll go through all of them and then we can go through the ones that are coming in live. But one thing that keeps coming back time and again is several people raising it is what's the deal with the culvert? Yorkshire Street's closed. Everyone's getting frustrated with it. So what's happening with it? Just want to answer that one.
Look, I totally get everyone's frustration. I'm as frustrated as anyone about it. It's not all Town to Turf project. There's basically a number of issues all coming together. So as well as the Town to Turf, the council decided to allow the repairs to the culvert to take place at the same time. Then last month there was some emergency utilities work that needed to get done, not just there but actually across other parts of the borough as well. That created a whole load of issues to do with roadworks. I've sat in exactly the same roadworks that everyone else has. I know how frustrating it is. The Yorkshire Street should be back open to two-way traffic in the next week or so. I was told the end of the month. So end of next week I'm hoping we're back to two-way traffic. They're going to move on and start doing where the roundabout is now, start redoing the road layout. I know it's really frustrating. Really frustrating. I mean, we all want to see good quality roads maintained, made good. You know, there's too many potholes right across Burnley, Padiham, villages, our country roads, our main roads. We need all of them repairing. But what I think is reasonable is for us all to say, can someone just do a bit of planning? Someone somewhere look at a map and go, look, these are your key routes into Burnley town centre, your key routes out. Just make sure we're not creating bottlenecks, which sadly, certainly last month, and for longer, we've seen too many of those bottlenecks because you've had the normal works that were planned in, plus the emergency works, plus these other things. But hopefully we're over kind of the worst hump, if I can put it that way.
Yeah.
Everyone can rest assured that when people come to me with these things, what I do is go straight to Lancashire County Council to make sure that they know actually that whilst we all want good quality roads, there is an irritation because sometimes they hear it just from me, and actually it's really helpful when I get to go there and say, look, there's lots of residents who are impacted by this, or as we're seeing now, lots of businesses affected as well, and it all adds up to build a picture, and it all helps me as I go and make that case to them.
I mean, that's what's happening now, and that is the situation as it is. What is the actual purpose of it? Because a lot of people are saying, like, what is actually happening? Basically, what I'm asking is, what's the end result for this? Yeah. When it's done, what we're going to see there?
Yeah, so I think, if you come into Burnley from any direction, what we want, we're a Premier League town. Hopefully, we maintain our status as a Premier League town with a Premier League football club. But even if we don't, it's only short term, right? We're going to bounce back up if we end up with going down the league. But we welcome thousands of people every single month to Burnley, whether it's for the football, to come to the new Pioneer Place development, to come to UCLan when it started, the college. Like, we get so many people coming in from outside, and we want them to stay, we want them to spend their money here. That's how we create jobs. We want this to be the best place to live, work, bring up your family. And Town to Turf is one of those key arterial kind of corridors into the town centre. So if you're a football fan on your way out, you've been to the turf, you've had a game, at the minute, you head straight out. Now, I'm not saying that's not going to happen. There's always going to be people who head straight out. But if we can capture just a small percentage of it, right, that helps our nighttime economy, it helps our restaurants. If people start to think, actually, Burnley's a really good town centre, so I'm going to come and watch the football, and my other half, or my kids, are going to come into the town centre, and we'll meet up afterwards, we might go to the cinema. That's what it's all designed to do. It's designed to make sure that whether you're a student at the college, a student at the university, a football fan travelling in, someone who's bringing up your family here, we've got an attractive town centre that talks to our ambition. That's what it's designed to do.
Yeah, I mean, take like Yorkshire Street with around the culvert.
Yeah.
Anyone would have said that area does need regenerating, with how it has been over the last 10, 20 years. So.
Yeah, and it's not just that, right? I mean, the subway that was the access route, that might be fine for you and I in normal daylight, but we know from speaking to other people that, particularly for women and girls, it feels a more dangerous route. Now, that has an impact on the nighttime economy, and I don't want anyone in Burnley or Paddington feeling unsafe when they go out. As if the barrier to that was, look, there's a subway that's dark and dingy and you don't necessarily feel safe. Well, then let's put it above ground, right? So there's lots of different things feeding into it, and I do think once it's all done, notwithstanding all the frustration, once it's done, I think it will be worthwhile.
Yeah. Well, thanks for that. I mean, there's a fair few people who've been saying hello since you've been speaking. So hello to all. There's a few people watching who just wanted to say hi. Another one of the questions that have come up. I know I don't want to be too negative about this, but you do get people saying, like, what's the crack with this? The other one is Blackburn Hospital. We've seen a lot of issue with the A&E in Blackburn. One of the comments talking about chaos in Blackburn. Another comment saying it's like a war zone. I mean, what have you got to say about the hospital service in Blackburn? Obviously we've got Burnley, but A&E in Blackburn as well.
I guess I would start by saying the A&E service, what residents are receiving as a quality of service, is unacceptable. Right? I know that. I'd like to think they know that. We all know that, right? Some of this is down to winter pressures, but not all of it is. I've been at the A&E in the last couple of months. I was in there myself, as people who follow the page would have seen earlier last year. I've had family members in there. It is not acceptable for people to be sitting on corridors for, extended periods of time. We all get, short periods whilst they're moving people around, but we've seen unacceptable levels of it. I feed all of them into the trust and ask them to investigate it. But actually, I'm starting to pick up a pattern we have been doing for a little while now. And so in a couple of weeks' time, I'm going in to tour the A&E, for want of a better word, with the chief executive, because I think it's really important that we're both there together so I can talk to him. And you can't manage A&E demand, right? You can't try and pull the wool over someone's eyes. When I'm in there in A&E with the chief executive for the trust, we'll see what we'll see. It is a normal time, and you know, everyone can be assured if I see things that concern me, I'll be flagging them, and I expect to see things that I don't think are acceptable. I suspect there'll be things that he doesn't think are acceptable too. I'll be following up with them, but I've also raised it with the minister down in London. It was just this week that I raised it again with the minister, because I mean, we all know, right, what our perfect solution to this is. Right? It's an A&E in Burnley, and if I thought that me starting a big campaign today would do that, then I'd be first on it. I'm afraid to say it's not realistic right now. That doesn't mean that I'm going to stop pushing it. You know, I've raised this in the House of Commons.
Yeah, you have.
I've raised it with ministers privately. I'm going to keep doing it. But in the meantime, we got to get Blackburn A&E right. Like, that is where people, not just from Burnley and Paddington, but all across East Lancashire go. It's not acceptable right now. You can be absolutely assured that I'm going to keep doing everything I possibly can to get it to what we all need it to be, which is the best quality healthcare when you're in an emergency situation. And keep watching this space, and please keep telling me what your experience is. I only know what I know, and I only know that because you tell me. So feed it all in. Well, I send it all to the minister and to the trust.
Well, I've got two. So someone's coming in saying that their granddad was actually in recently and was on a corridor for 2 days.
Yeah, it's not exactly.
Yeah, and I know, to be fair, going back to what you were saying with the A&E in Burnley, Labour closed the A&E in Burnley. Everyone knows that. And I think it's a respectable position where you take, where you say, if I can't deliver it, what's the point of me promising it? We've seen that before.
Yeah.
The town's seen that before. So, but like I say, people are saying that it's an issue. And I'm sure people will be quite happy that you're going in and
two days is not acceptable. I mean, let's be honest about it. A day isn't acceptable.
Yeah.
Corridor, there is a legitimate use of corridors whilst you're moving people around from A&E to a ward and stuff like that. But people shouldn't be receiving their care on a corridor. That's like it's an interim step. So 2 days, totally unacceptable. If you want to send me the details, then when I'm with the chief executive in a couple of weeks' time, I'll absolutely take that one to him along with all the others I've got.
Yeah, so that's a good question actually to raise what people are saying. Is that what you're going to do? Like, you're collating what people are saying and you'll
100%.
Put it in front of
them.
So
all the ones that have come in, over recent months, they've all been sent to the trust, and I've asked them to investigate them and come back, because I think residents deserve answers about the care that they and their relatives and loved ones receive.
Yeah.
But absolutely right. When I go and see the chief executive, I'm going to have a list of them, and I think what will help me is having a list of stuff that residents have raised with me, and then going around and seeing, is that still the case? And actually, it was something a resident raised with me earlier today when I was out knocking on doors. We had a chat about the A&E and their recent experience. So the stuff from that is in my head to go, right, okay, I need to go and look at this to see if that's still the case. Was it a one-off, or is it something that's still happening?
So Joanne is jumping in on this and saying we need to remind people that about Aki Vic, a Rosendale walking centre for minor injuries and illnesses too.
100%. I mean, we've got an urgent care centre at Burnley General, which is brilliant. You can get good care there. You're right. We've got Aki Vic. We've got the Rosendale Primary Care Centre. There's urgent care at Blackburn as well. I think they've moved around where some of it is. So I'll see some of that when I go in, and happy to update everyone. But yeah, it's about going to the right place at the right time. So if it's a minor injury, go to a minor injury unit. If it's urgent but not life-threatening, not an emergency, then go to an urgent care centre. And if you're ever in any doubt, call NHS 111. Like, they're there to tell people where the best place to go is. They can see the live wait times for how busy hospitals are, how busy is Burnley urgent care versus Blackburn urgent care versus Blackburn A&E.
So another Joanne jumps in the conversation, and she's talking about supporting the staff there, and I think she's getting at the point that some of the staff there also have sharing these frustrations, especially at the conditions that they find in themselves having to work in. But I guess you're going to see that, right, when you go to...
100%. And it's exactly why walking around A&E is helpful, right? Because I get to walk around, speak to the chief executive of the trust, speak to the staff working there, see what it is that they think. You know, the people who know how to fix the problem most are the people who work in it every single day. And then speak to the patients, right? Speak to people who are there receiving treatment. 100%. I know that, you know, staff in A&E work incredibly hard, as all our healthcare workers do. But we've got to find a way working with staff, with management, and with patients, because everything should be patient-centred. Everything should be about the person turning up because they need help. So you've got to bring everyone together to make sure that the patient's journey is the best one. That's exactly the message I'm going to take when I go there in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, like Diana's jumping in and saying, I mean, from what she's saying, it looks like she's agreeing with you, but she thinks that the NHS needs an overhaul, managing correctly. And then Roberto brings in the point about GP appointments, which is the first step. And you know, you've spoken quite a lot about GP appointments.
Again, raised that in the House of Commons. We've got some brilliant GP surgeries, and we've got some that could do with a bit more help. That a bit of progress that they still need to make. And that's the difference. GP surgeries, there are many of them operating across Burnley and Padiham. And you can compare them online, and you know, actually I'm a big believer that if you're not getting the right service from your GP or anyone else, then you know, you should vote with your feet and move to a better one, because that's the only way that good surgeries improve and bad surgeries either improve or close, and then we find new people to reopen them. So I think most of our surgeries are really, really good, but if there are... So there's one surgery, and I won't sit on here, there's one surgery that's been brought to my attention as possibly being one that needs some extra attention. If you think your surgery is one of them, tell me. Again, I'm totally reliant on people coming and bringing things to me. So if people come and say, look, actually, I've been speaking to my neighbours, we're all at this one surgery and we think there might be a problem. One, that helps me go to the GP surgery itself and have that conversation. But two, it lets me have the conversation with ministers and with the Care Quality Commission and go, there might be an issue here, we might need some more intensive work. And it might be that they've got a staffing issue, right? There are always reasons for something, but we got to find what they are and deal with it. There is no reason that residents across Burnley and Padiham shouldn't be able to get a GP appointment when they need it in the format they need. Yeah,
well, this is kind of a link onto this topic. But Danielle talks about, she says that she's received a letter off you talking about GP and dentists.
Yeah.
I know you've been talking about dentists just this week. She's saying that her kids have never seen a dentist and she needs help with it. So I guess the question that she's asking, and what another person had asked previously the other day, was what's going on with dentistry, and if someone's got an issue, like, well, what's going on?
Yeah, brilliant question. And again, I feel like I'm a broken record on this. It's something else that I've raised just this week. So I met the dental minister, Andrea Leadsom, on Monday or Tuesday, I forget which day it was. And she's working intensively on a package for dentistry to try and fix the problem. So it's going to be called the Dental Recovery White Paper. And so I was talking to her about what we've seen in Burnley. The reason I sent out a chunk of surveys was there was a particular area of Burnley that for GPs in particular seemed to have a problem, so everyone in that local area got that letter from me. But I do that whenever I get issues flagged to me. On dentistry, I've basically come up with a couple of suggestions to government, which I'm hoping they'll consider ahead of this white paper. One is we should be incentivising dentists to come and treat patients that have gone without treatment for a long time. So if we say to a dentist, look, if you treat a patient that's not seen someone for 2 years, we're going to give you an extra payment. So you're not just going to get paid for the treatment that you're doing, but we're going to give you like a golden handshake.
Right.
Because that means they're going to start registering new patients quickly, right? The massive incentive there for dentists to go, if I register new patients and then treat them, not only do I get paid for the treatment, but if there's some extra cost because they've not seen dentists for a while, then I'll get some extra money for that as well.
And is that being spoken about now then?
So that's what I raised with the minister when I was down there. Then I raised the issue of dental deserts, which is basically, you know, if you're in a part of the country, and I consider us a bit like this, where there are no, you know, maybe one or two, depends on the time of the year, dentists registering new patients, maybe we give an extra sign-on bonus. You know, if a newly trained dentist goes, do you know what, I'm going to go and set up in Burnley. Well, we need them in Burnley. So if you're going to go and set up in a big city where there's lots of dentists, fine, do that, but we're not going to give you this extra money. If you go to Burnley, set up there where they really need dentists, we're going to give you some extra funding to do it. So I've said that. Much more on prevention, but also I think, you know, as a basic principle of fairness, if you are a dentist, newly qualified, who was trained in a British university, receiving taxpayer funding to help get your dental degree, you should have to do NHS dental work for a period of time. At the minute, that's not the case.
I was going to say, is that not the case?
No, at the minute, you can go to dentistry school, you can qualify, and you can go straight into private practice doing cosmetic work. I'm not saying that's not got a place, but we've got a dental issue, and we need dentists to come and practice here. So all of that is being worked on. I pushed it with the minister this week. I'm hopeful that that white paper, the recovery white paper, will come out in a couple of weeks' time. And that, you know, if not all of them, then some of those recommendations are in there. But watch this space. But please fill in the survey and send it back to me, because it is helping me build a picture. Yeah,
okay. The other topic, and this won't come as a surprise to anybody that this topic has been raised quite a lot actually, but it's been in the news. I know you've taken quite a hard line on this in some of the articles I've seen you put in the Burnley Express and even on this Facebook page, which is regarding stopping the boats.
Yeah.
So there's a few comments. I'll give you a flavour of what's been said.
What are people thinking?
Yeah. So when is Rishi going to stop the boats, like he promised?
Yeah.
Don't claim the numbers are down because that's just to do with the weather.
Okay.
This issue needs tackling. You need to get a grip. The Conservatives need to sort this, and it just goes on like that. Yeah. So I think for everybody watching, there's a big appetite for this issue to be sorted. Yeah. I know you personally want to see it sorted. Yeah. I want to see it sorted, and probably the majority of people watching tonight, Anthony, want to see it sorted. So I guess what's happening?
So I guess the first thing I would want to say is, it is a perfectly legitimate view to want to stop the boats and to want strong and secure borders. And I say that because there is sometimes a narrative that we are uncompassionate if we think we should stop the boats and we think we should have secure borders. I would say that it is compassionate to want to do all of that, right? Because my compassion is for the United Kingdom and for the people who live here. And I think it is reasonable for us to say, we should have total control of who comes into the United Kingdom. We should know who's entering the country, who's leaving the country, how they got here, and we should control it.
100%.
That is as far as I'm concerned, a baseline. So if I said I share the frustration of residents, I'd probably be understating it a little bit, but I'm totally on there. On the numbers, I'm going to do what I was asked not to do. I am going to say they are down a bit.
Okay.
Because it shows some of what's working. So I get the weather point, but if you take 2023 versus 2022, which basically includes all seasons, all weather, they are down.
Is that is part of that because of the arrangement that was struck with Albania?
Yes. So what we didn't have in 2022 that we had in 2023 that did help pull the numbers down was a returns agreement, which basically said if you're an Albanian national and you enter the UK illegally, you know, do not pass go, head straight back to Albania, we're going to put you on that flight. It's a deterrent. So not only did that mean that we sent a load of people back in the first place, but it means that Albanians aren't coming because they know they're being sent straight back home. That is the point of a deterrent, and that is exactly what Rwanda is there to achieve.
Yeah, because
you don't get on the boat in the first place because you know you're being sent back. You know, everyone's fixated on this idea that we will be sending tens of thousands of people to Rwanda. That's not the way deterrent work. If you look at what Australia did when they've got offshore processing, they don't send thousands of people there.
People know that no point to come.
There's no point getting on the boat. Why would you spend £10,000 giving it to a people smuggler to say, well, get me into the United Kingdom, if you know one of the first things that's going to happen to you is you're going to be detained by border officers because we're increasing the number of detention centres. Then I'm going to be taken to Heathrow, Gatwick, wherever it is. Then I'm going to be sent on an aircraft to Albania if I'm Albanian, India if I'm Indian. And if I stick with the line that I can't go home because it's not safe, and let's be honest, most people aren't going to say that. But if you do say that, then we're going to say that's fine. Then we'll send you to Rwanda because that is safe. We know it's safe. They're going to process you there. But actually, most people at that point will go, well, actually, I'm from X country and it's safe there, so I'll go back there. Why are they going to say that? Because they're not genuine asylum seekers. They are economic migrants trying to enter the UK illegally to get around our system.
Yeah, and I think what you just said there kind of comes back to what Barry was saying, because Barry's comment was that Rwanda plan won't work.
Yeah, I just disagree.
Yeah, he basically thinks a better plan needs to be involving the EU. But I think the point you were making there is it's not that Rwanda is going to be this tens of thousands. It's just a deterrent, isn't it? If you're paying 10,000 to a people smuggler.
Yeah, and the proof of that is one, that Albania's worked. Two, Italy has just signed an agreement with Albania.
Yeah.
So Italy has just signed an agreement where Albania is going to process thousands of people who enter Italy illegally. So they're going to enter Italy illegally on a boat crossing the Med. Italy's going to send them to Albania, which is building processing centres, places that people will stay whilst their application is processed. So Italy's doing something similar to what we're doing. Germany is looking at it interested. The Netherlands is looking at it interested. There are so few ways that we're going to be able to deal with this global migration challenge, which is going to be a big challenge for, the next decade or so. Rwanda is one of them. The policy will work because it's not in isolation. If I was sat here saying the only policy is Rwanda, then I'd get it. I'd be like, you know what, maybe that's not going to hold true. But we are signing returns agreements with countries all the time. Yeah. Right? Turkey, India, Albania. These are some of the countries that are, the highest number of entrants in terms of people coming to the UK.
So do you think that's going to play a big part? The more of these agreements that signed, we're going to see the numbers blah, 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 blah.
Yeah, we're going to see the numbers come down. But we need something for those people where we don't have a returns agreement. That's what Rwanda is.
All those who turn up without a passport or any identification documents, and where are you from?
Yeah.
Yeah. Which brings its whole safety aspects of it and everything.
100%. And that's what Rwanda is. So when are we going to see Rwanda get off the ground? Look, we're doing everything we possibly can in Parliament. We've signed. We heard the Supreme Court. They made their decision. Whether I think it was right or wrong, and I think it was wrong, they're independent, right? I can't change the Supreme Court's decision. What we can do is go, well, if you've got these concerns, we can go and speak to the Rwandans. We did that. We negotiated a new treaty with them. Then we're passing some new legislation. We did it in the House of Commons. Anyone who watched the news will know we had a robust debate on it.
Just bring it in then, because the conversation in the comments is basically moving on this point, saying, what about the Lords?
Yeah.
What are the Lords doing? And then Barry does come back and say, basically, lefty lawyers, this is his wording, lefty lawyers will block deportations all day long because it won't pass a legal test. I think the only thing I said, we've got a Lord in Burnley, Lord Wajid Khan. Do you know what his position were in the Lords, and then how do you answer the question where someone's saying the Lords will block it just like they did with the Brexit bill? Yeah. So it's the same issue as they'll try and long. Are we going to get to an election before? That's what's being said.
Well, I hope not, right? I mean, I want to see the Rwanda agreement implemented and in operation. I want to see that tomorrow, right? Every day that it's not in place is another day that we don't have complete control of our border, and that to me is unacceptable. Some people might have seen in the news this week the House of Lords used a power it's not ever used before. So an international treaty, Parliament can block an international treaty if it so wishes. House of Commons hasn't blocked the Rwanda partnership. In fact, we've got a clear majority for it. You can see that from the Rwanda bill. The House of Lords, for the first time in its history, decided to block that legislation. It can only do it for 21 days. So all it does is stop the treaty from coming into force for 21 days. It'll take us a bit longer than that to get the legislation through the Lords anyway, so not a major problem. But your question of how Lord Khan of Burnley voted, well, he voted to block the treaty.
Of course he did. Of course he did. We all knew that's what he'd go.
You know, residents will make up their own mind about that.
Someone called Greg is saying it's a joke that we're still talking about Rwanda. Now, I don't think it's a joke because it needs fixing. Maybe why he says it's a joke is I don't know if he agrees with it. I don't know whether he thinks that it's a bad idea and he can't believe we're even discussing it. But ultimately, I think what you said at the start of this, Anthony, the people who come into this country, the government should decide who are elected, not criminal gangs, and that's just the bottom line.
And do you know what my message to so if if it's a joke because it's taken too long, I 100% agree. It's incredibly frustrating. And I'll keep doing whatever I can using my vote in Parliament as the representative from Burnley and Padiham to support it and try and get it on the statute book. But for those who disagree, for those on the left of politics who don't agree with this scheme, give me an alternative. This is the most frustrating thing about the Labour Party. They have no plan to deal with it. They tell you that this is the wrong thing, but never have an idea of what to say. I mean, they'll come up with all these great words of, we're going to make an agreement with France. Why on earth would France?
Well, someone's asking that comment, why can't we just take them back to France?
Because France won't take them. Well, I mean, I can't sail a boat into a French port. And that's not a long-term solution, right? I mean, it's a good way of starting a diplomatic incident, but it's not going to actually stop the boats because what's going to happen, we'll take them back. The camp in Calais is still there, right? Those people will go from the French port back to Calais, come back over. Why are they doing that? Because there's tons of charities
helping them.
Helping people.
True.
I mean, watch YouTube. You'll see all these charities handing out food, shelter. Instead of saying, register yourself.
Yeah, and Diane's kind of making the point here that the people we see coming over, in the vast majority, are young men.
Yes.
Young men coming over. And it's a good point. I mean, it's a good point, but it kind of gets lost when people talk about this issue because you only need a few pictures of a young child like I've got and a woman, and it's like, this is terrible. But the vast majority are young blokes coming over.
The vast majority are young men. There are obviously women and children in some of the boats. Of course there are. I mean, we should be clear, that doesn't mean they are refugees. They may also be coming here just because they want a better life, and that is admirable. But we've got a process. We've got a process if you want to come here for a better life. It's called the points-based system, and if you don't meet the number of points you need, then I'm sorry, there's plenty of other countries.
I guess where this is moving on to is we're talking about solutions to this. We're talking about deterrent and everything. People, when Greg talks about a joke, there are those people who think, well, this is taking too long, and the Conservatives aren't conservative. And one of the comments that we've seen is, I don't recognise the Conservative Party. Reform are now the real Conservatives. Sorry, Anthony, you've been a really good MP. That's the message that's coming through. You've been a really good MP, but you need to jump ship and join the Reform Party. What do you say to anyone who says that?
Stick with us. Stick with us. As I said, I know how frustrating it has been because I share in your frustration. It irritates me every single day that we're not able to tackle this issue. And I know how much Rishi wants to sort it as well. I have had conversation after conversation. If this was solvable overnight, what's the plan? So I get that there are other parties, Reform, Labour, Lib Dems. Everyone seems to have an idea that they want to fix it, but no one's got an actual plan of what they want to do on it. And I think, the next election is a choice between me as the Conservative candidate and the Labour Party candidate in Burnley. It's going to be that much of a binary choice, and the question that people will need to answer is, who do you think is actually going to keep pushing this issue, make sure that Rwanda's in place, make sure we've got a deterrent, because as I said earlier on, the global migratory challenge is going to get worse. So we need to make sure we've got the defences in place now to deal with it and have a deterrent. But I'm not saying that in a couple of years, if that problem gets worse, we should stand still. It might be that in a few years, once Rwanda's in place, we go, look, we need to do even more because there's more migration. Well, who do you trust to do more?
I was going to say that the one thing that stood out for me, I think it was 2 weeks ago now, where Keir Starmer were actually asked, if Rwanda is working, the boats have stopped and Rwanda's acted as a deterrent to work, that's what I mean by that. Would you still reverse the policy? Yes, was the answer.
Exactly.
Still,
and it comes back to principles, values and priorities. And the Labour Party, maybe it's just, they don't share my values. I've spoken to Labour MPs about borders and the boats, and they just don't see it as a problem.
Yeah, I get that.
And that to me is worrying.
You'll like this one. Alan actually says we need more money for our defence forces. You're a big advocate of the armed forces, so I take it that's just I agree.
Yeah, I agree. Look, the world is more dangerous now than it's ever been in my lifetime. I suspect we're in a more dangerous place than we have been since the height of the Cold War. There are sadly no shortage of people that want to cause us harm. And I think we need to reflect that in our defence posture. We are so lucky in this country. And I've been able to go and visit some of our armed forces. They are the best, most capable, most fierce. If there's one country you don't want to go up against, or one group of soldiers, it's the British soldiers.
Should be proud of that.
Absolutely, we should be proud. And I've been able to spend some time was over in the Pentagon speaking to some US, senior US military figures. Don't believe what you read in the news. The United States thinks the UK is a tier 1 partner and we punch well above our weight and we should continue to do so. But, as I've said to the Chancellor, the world's a more dangerous place, and that means, defence should always be up there as one of those things we need to always look at and go, should we be spending a little bit more?
Yeah, there's people are agreeing on the danger that the world's in. So another question. This is switching the topic slightly, but another question that's coming off a woman called Mary is, when can we have a referendum on abolishing the House of Lords? They are costing the taxpayer too much money. We've already mentioned about Wajid Khan, Lord Wajid Khan, sorry. So when can we abolish the House of Lords is Mary's question.
Do you know what? If Brexit wasn't a sign enough that we need to relook at some of how we do politics, then I think the last, for me, having been elected, the last 4 years have been. And I do think we need to start to take a look at the House of Lords to go, is this right? Is there a better way of doing this? I'm not saying there's not a role for a group of people who are experts to relook at legislation just to check it before we put it into the law. That's when the House of Lords is at its best. When it takes a piece of legislation that we in the Commons have voted on and passed, and it checks it as a group of experts in that field and goes, well, we're going to tweak it, we're going to make it better. And then they send it back to us and we can say yay or nay, as we should do as the elected chamber. The House of Lords at its worst is political and stands in the way of the elected. And there was a really disappointing speech earlier this week in that debate about blocking the treaty, where a member of the House of Lords stood up and said, essentially, we are a check on the elected chamber.
I mean, yeah, this is what I mean.
Right, I'm elected to represent the views of Bernie and Paddy. I am held to account at a general election. That is the right thing. That is how a modern democracy should work. There is a place for a group of people to make suggestions and make sure legislation is exactly what it should be. But I do think we need to start looking at the House of Lords, and we'll see where we end up.
Yeah. Okay. What else have we got? We need to knock on Stephen Waring's door. He wants to speak with you one-to-one on the doorstep, which he said he'd love to have a conversation. When are you coming to knock on his door? So
Stephen, drop me a message. I will come and knock on your door.
There you go, Stephen. You got that.
But include your phone number in case you're not in, and then I'll call you.
Okay. Can we please, this is Ari, can we please have an update, and we've spoken about this a lot, even the last few days it's been mentioned, but can we have an update on the progress made with the closed bridge on the Padiham Greenway?
Yes. So, if anyone's watching and doesn't know what this is talking about, so the Padiham Greenway, which is kind of the active route, you know, paths through parks and whatnot, that goes through Padiham, it goes over a bridge over the River Calder, and that's been closed now for more than 2 years. We're probably coming up to the 3rd year.
Yeah.
I think that's been closed.
Too long.
Really frustrating. Something I've been speaking to the Coal Authority about and Sustrans about. So to give you a headline rundown of what the issue has been, underneath the river, and in fact underneath lots of our area, there are mine shafts. So the first problem was the bridge started to move, masonry had started to fall. That means, you know, you've got to be careful that the bridge is safe. You don't want people on it if it's not safe. So first thing, they closed the bridge because they didn't know if it was safe or not. Then you got to figure out what's causing the problem. So the summer just gone, they've done sonar. So they've done the sonar underneath. That indicates that the mine shafts are intact.
Yeah.
So if you look at that, it doesn't look like the problem has come from the bridge essentially sinking into a mine, which means it is going to be something different. So Sustrans are now looking at all those sonar reports to make sure they agree with the finding. So the Coal Authority did all the surveys, all the sonar surveys. They've said they don't think it's the mine shaft. It's right that Sustrans, as the people who own the bridge, re-look at that and just make sure. So they're doing that. When I spoke to them last month, they were looking to make a final decision on that this month and take it to their board. And then I'll get an update, hopefully at the end of this month, so back end of next week, that'll say either, you know, we think it's this or we think it's that. Then we'll know what the plan to fix it is, right? So if it's not the mine shafts, then hopefully Sustrans can figure out what it is, you know, and it might be something as simple as the piers that the bridge sits on, the constant water flowing through has taken some of the, you know, some of the foundations out. So repair the foundations and the bridge will stop moving, and we get it. But it might be something more complicated.
Yeah.
The problem at the minute is, and I'm with everyone, we all want to get it reopened, but you can't reopen it until you know what it is. And so I get, you know, I know people are thinking, well, how much will it cost? Whatever the cost is, can we go and get it? Once we've got a figure, if, you know, whatever the figure is, you can bet your bottom dollar I'm going to be going to council, government, whoever, to try and find a way of getting that money. If the barrier's money, it might be nothing to do with that. But as I know it's dragged on a long time.
Yeah.
End of next week, I'm expecting an update, and I'll post on Facebook. So hopefully that gets shared into some of the Padiham groups. Because, I mean, I know how important it is, right? We all enjoy the green, particularly in the summer months, which we're coming up to. So I'll keep pushing it. I'll try and keep everyone updated.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that, Anthony, because I know that I've seen you raise it in Parliament. Yeah. I mean, I've raised it in Burnley Borough Council a couple of times. Been to the Sustran, to the bridge, and seen it with Sustran and the Coal Authority with you. And it is, when residents have contacted me up at the top end of Padiham, it's, what's happening, Jamie? What's happening? And ultimately, like, there's investigation works happening. And I'm same as you. We want to see the bridge open tomorrow, but you can't just, you can't do it. So it is a time thing that people have just got to wait. And
and I get it, right? I mean,
it's annoying. It's really annoying.
But it's not just used for leisure. I mean, people literally commuted to work using that.
And someone on the Padiham Community Action page was speaking about this yesterday. I actually commented on it. Someone had posted a letter they received from you, giving what you just said as an update. But yeah, there were loads of comments on that. Oh, I used to use this route to work, etc. So yeah, you're right with that. Joanne asked, can I ask, when nurses working in private companies on behalf of NHS or charitable organisations are not paid the COVID back pay, when will they receive these payments, as the government has made it so difficult to get it and claim back? This is quite complex.
Yeah, so I think this is those staff who provide an NHS service but they're not employed directly by the NHS.
Yeah.
In those instances, and it's always really difficult when the government makes announcements relating to NHS pay, because what they're talking about is directly employed NHS staff. What they don't do is then caveat and go, but if you are employed by, you know, a third party, and some of that is like councils. So some councils provide services that are badged as the NHS. Family visiting is one of them. So it depends on where in the country you are.
Yeah.
Sometimes family visitors are employed by your county council, sometimes they're employed by the NHS, sometimes they're employed by a third party. I know locally we've got some people who provide NHS services, they'll wear an NHS badge. Anyone out there would think they are directly employed by the NHS, but they're not. They're employed by a third sector organisation. It's really difficult because the government pay award doesn't apply. Right. They're on private employment contracts.
So is it down to the company?
It's down to the company. Do I think the companies have a moral obligation? Yes, I do. But can I force them? No. If it's a company I'm not aware of, I'm happy to make representations to them. Please, you know, drop me a message, let me know. If it's one of the ones that I know about, and you'll probably know if it's one of the ones I know about because I've been in contact with most staff, I can try and make representations again. Drop me a message. I wish there was more I could do, but there are limits, sadly.
Just picking back up on this bridge, Luke just asked a question here about that bridge, and we'll call this on the bridge, but if Sustren own it, then why would the public purse foot the bill? Yes.
It's a good question because of the public benefit, is the short answer. So Sustrens are a charity.
So he adds in at the end, and if we have to, then can we get ownership back into the local community so that Sustrens don't? I suppose what would the organisation be to put it with? You can't put it with a person, can you? And just put it with it. Would Paddy and Town Council really want to take on that bridge?
Yeah, I mean, it's a totally fair point. There are lots of examples of where public benefit means some public money goes into something. Would I expect the public to foot the whole bill? Absolutely not. But if repairs cost X amount and as a charity they go, well, we just can't do it, there's a public benefit, so we might try and find some public money to go into it. It's about straining every sinew, getting value for money for the taxpayer. As to whether the public could take it back into ownership, happy to have that conversation at the time. I hadn't thought about it. Happy to have the conversation. I guess my worry would be all and any repairs are then
that's what I'm
responsible. The community is then responsible for it. So if you've got a whole greenway, you got to maintain it. And that's fine whilst it's just happy go lucky. But then what happens if in 5 years there's a problem again?
Yeah, this is it. I mean, a number of people have joined and just saying hello. Karen's joined, Wendy's joined, so hello to the new people have just joined. Chris also jumps in on a conversation we'd had before about defence, saying that he agrees the world's dangerous and we need to be at least 3%. I presume that's a position that you'd probably go with as a one word, yes or no?
Yes, I would agree with that.
Okay, yes.
I would agree with your percentage.
And then moving on, a lot of people have mentioned about...
I should say, by the way, on defence, we are increasing to 2.5. So we are on an upwards trajectory.
Okay.
Is it as fast as some of us might like? No. But doing it in a responsible way, managing the economy, making sure that you can sustain it, is equally as important as the target.
Which is fair. A number of people have spoken about the post office. Now, you questioned the chief executive of the post office. We're at last week now.
Yeah, last Tuesday.
Yeah, you were in a business committee, and you had the chief exec in front of you of the post office, and you kind of laid it on thick with him. And there were a backwards and forwards. I watched the clip, and it's gone on your Facebook. I think it's like a 3-parter on the Facebook, but you kind of asked a number of probing questions to him about his lack of curiosity and why he didn't ask these questions and why has he seen things. But a lot of people are coming in. Obviously, so many people have watched the Mr. Bates versus the post office.
Brilliant, absolutely brilliant.
I have to admit, I've watched 2 episodes. I haven't finished it, but
it's really well.
It's sad. It's quite an emotional program. Personally, I thought. But the number of questions coming in, why has this been allowed to happen? How awful that guy that you're questioning were. I mean, I'm not saying nothing, but that's the comments coming in, and then also the suggested money as compensation for people needs to be paid quickly. Some people say it's too low. Some people say just can't understand how something like this took place, and you can see that vividly in that TV program. It's shocking, isn't it? Because you just think
it is really shocking. I mean, the Prime Minister has described it. I think he was quoting someone else. It is the biggest miscarriage of justice in British justice history. It is utterly appalling that we got into that position as a country. These were private prosecutions. They weren't even prosecutions from government, and it's an important point for us to then reflect on: are private prosecutions fair and reasonable? It's not just the Post Office that has that power. The BBC has that power. There are other organisations that has the power to privately prosecute, and we need to really reflect on whether we think that's a good idea.
Well, you did push that chief executive and said to him, in your time as the CEO, have any private prosecutions taken place? And did he not come back and say, none have and none will be taking place?
Yeah. So he said that they've not done any private prosecutions since he took over, and he has no intention of using them again, which is fine. But I still think we should probably strip him of the power to do so, because he is one chief executive at this moment in time.
And it's going to change,
And it will change. And whilst this might be memory right now, what happens in 10 or 15 years, right? We all know technology moves on. There'll be another IT software program to help with something. It might not even be in the Post Office. It might be somewhere totally different. On the money and the timelines, I agree with all of that. The Prime Minister has announced new legislation which is designed to overturn all the historic convictions. That's because of the time. We could put this all through the courts and ask the courts to overturn convictions, and they'd have to look at each individual case. And in normal justice, that's the way it should be. But that's going to take a long time, and some of these people are getting on, right? I mean, some people have sadly died without overturning their convictions. So the legislation should help right that wrong. And on the compensation, I mean, it's fair to say, and Joe Hamilton said this, Alan Bates said this when they were before the committee.
You met him, didn't you?
Yeah. There's no amount of money that can make all of it right.
Yeah, I get that.
But you can try and remove some of the financial hardship that people have suffered as a result. People lost their houses and things like that. So we've said by the end of August is our timeline to try and get that done. I should be clear, some of the numbers that are out there are like interim numbers. So some people have seen £70,000 and thought that's the whole amount. It's not.
Yeah, someone does reference that exact number. Yeah.
So 70,000 is kind of like your first automatic. You're in the process.
You get in that.
You get that, but then you build up. I mean, the total compensation bill, we heard in that committee, is expected to be well above £1 billion.
Yeah. And didn't Fujitsu say that they're going to have to? We saw it in that programme.
And it would be totally wrong for all of that to fall on the public purse, on taxpayers. Now, the Post Office is owned by the public, it's owned by the taxpayer, so we're going to have to use taxpayers' money to fund some of the compensation, but Fujitsu absolutely should be putting into that pot of money. They've said they will, so they made the commitment at committee. I spoke to the minister afterwards, and he said that was the first time they'd heard a proper commitment to do so. And once they've got the final bill, that's when I think we should have a conversation about how much that is. Yeah,
because to answer Dale's question, Dale's saying, are Fujitsu going to be questioned at committee? They did get questioned, didn't they? And that's just what Anthony's talking about now. Diana makes a very good point. She says, how come Keir Starmer as chief prosecutor is claiming no knowledge whatsoever of the Post Office atrocity? Apparently didn't reach his desk. Well, you're probably a bit wary of what you can say on this, but the thing about it is that I've seen a video of Keir Starmer saying everything that happened in the
this is my responsibility. This is the thing, right? So Keir Starmer is very happy to stand on his record and say, I was Director of Public Prosecutions and didn't I do a brilliant job? But he's only willing to take that line when it relates to things that he thinks are good. When it's things that went wrong on his watch, of which there are a number. He says that he was director of public prosecution. You couldn't possibly have seen everything. Well, sorry, you pick one or the other, right? I mean, the boss of Fujitsu came before us and we held him to account. He wasn't even chief executive of Fujitsu at the time, and he was before our committee giving evidence and we were holding him to account. The same with the post office.
Yeah.
The person at the top of the organisation is the person in charge. They decide what crosses their desk and what doesn't cross their desk. They decide how... My point to the post office chief executive was, where is your curiosity?
Yeah, exactly.
Right, so you get to decide that. Keir Starmer made decisions. He made decisions about what his prosecutors were prosecuting. He made decisions about what he was interested in and not interested in. He doesn't get to now turn around and say, sorry, not my job.
Yeah, it's true there. I agree with Dan. I agree with what you've just said there. Heather brings it to a bit more of a positive from the post office, which is... she says, Paddy, and I mentioned this last night in council, like Paddy and shops are getting together and they're introducing late night shopping from next Thursday, up until 7 p.m. Heather's saying, do you think it's a good thing, and could this be a way to regenerate Burnley Town Centre, especially during the summer months? So Heather's basically saying, can Burnley rob this amazing idea from Paddy? Yes.
So I think it is a brilliant idea. My message to everyone watching is shop local, get to Padiham.
Yeah.
The first night they're doing this is Thursday next week, the 1st of February. Get down to Padiham. Support some of those small businesses. You know, there's Raw's Grazing, there's barbers and hairdressers, there's places to buy your hardware goods. You know, get down there, support these businesses. Because our high streets are vibrant because we support them. Do I think it could be replicated in Burnley? I mean, yes, it could be. But I think Padiham and Burnley complement each other. So I don't necessarily see it as they need to compete with one another. You know, I think it's brilliant that Burnley Town Centre is going from strength to strength. It's got restaurants, it's got a brand new cinema, it's got a great cafe culture that's growing, it's looking brilliant. It's got that going for it. Padiham is becoming this brilliant town, rivaling Whalley for the number of great independent shops.
Yeah,
that's the difference in Padiham. They're
independent.
It is, and it's so important we support them. And so using new ways of doing it, like saying late night opening. You've got free parking in Padiham. They complement each other really well. So could Burnley do something? Yeah, of course it could. And I'm all for anything that supports our economy and helps businesses grow. But I love the fact that Padiham is doing this. And I hope that everyone watching gets down there and supports those businesses because, they employ our friends and our family. Local small businesses are the proper lifeblood.
Yeah, and we've seen it, haven't we, with whether it's the Christmas light switch on or everyone mourned at the start with the roadworks that took place in the centre, but the pavement being wider does enable a lot more things to happen there, and in turn, like the shops being done up, the shop.
Yeah, it's that point about it's like the roadworks in Burnley. We all get the frustration. They are incredibly frustrating when they happen, and they can be planned better to minimise disruption, but. In Padiham, we see the longer term benefits of that.
Yeah. We haven't got much time left. If we don't answer any comments, I think at the start you said you'll get back.
I'll try and get back to everyone.
Try and get back to everyone. One of the questions by Shaq is about how are you going to start to put money back in hard-working people's pockets? I guess this is a question just about the cost of living in general, but you'll have a few things to say on that, no doubt.
Yeah. And I'm going to start by going back to the fundamental bit. One of the fundamental reasons that I'm in the Conservative Party, I believe you're better placed to decide where your money goes than the state, the government, Parliament, whoever. And so the best thing Parliament, government, you name it, the council can do to help with the cost of living is to take less money out of your pay packet.
Yeah.
That is far and away the best thing we can do. We can talk about lots of other things, but the best thing we can do is just limit how much we take from you. So, start of January, we did the national insurance cut, 2% cut to national insurance. That's worth hundreds of pounds for the typical salary in Burnley and Padiham a year. I'm pushing the Chancellor as hard as I can to try and get him to go further in the budget in March, because again, I think it's the best thing we can do to help with the cost of living. But there's other things that we're doing as well. So, for example, we know that council funding can be an issue. Don't want the council to have to hike everyone's council tax.
No, they waste too much money.
Well, quite. And I think the council would do well to freeze council tax, given it continues to increase year after year. But how do we help them do that? Well, we increase their funding. So we've just yesterday announced another funding package for councils on top of previous funding. That means every council is going to see like a dramatic, I think it's 7% in real core spending power before any council tax rise is taken into account. So if councils want to go above that, especially borough councils, county councils with some social care, schools, stuff like that, slightly different, but still going to be very mindful, right? This is other people's money. I don't think councils and government always reflect that. So what should we do to help with cost of living? Take less money off people. Make sure there's schemes in place for if people really fall on hard times. Household support fund has been massive for that. We introduced that during COVID and have continued it ever since. That funding has been worth millions of pounds to Burnley Council. And the idea was, if people are falling through some of the support schemes or costs were rising too high, like energy bills, even after we've done all the interventions, if we give the council, Burnley Borough Council, a chunk of money and say, if you've got a problem, you can dish this out to residents who contact you, and it's totally discretionary. Government's not telling you how to spend it or who to give it to. We did that for Burnley Council, millions of pounds. I think it's been pretty successful. Well, so we've got all those in place.
And it's still hoarded a few 100,000 of it, someone's just commented. And that's very true, they have.
I can believe it.
Which should be spent.
It should be spent. I mean, it was given
every
to help residents.
This is probably the last question that we can squeeze in before we have to drop off. And there has been a few people saying, thanks a lot, support you, I am leaving. Diana being one of them, goodbye. She's gone already. But it's just Danny's basically saying, hey Anthony, what's this levelling up actually mean? Is it money or is it more? And I think that's the last question. If you can try and condense it though, because it's a big topic. And
one of the biggest questions with the shortest amount of time to answer it. What is levelling up? Levelling up for me is making sure that you get the same opportunities, the same sense of pride in your local area wherever you live in the country. Like, what have we lost out on in Burnley over a long time? It's opportunity. We've watched as other areas, big cities have had all the opportunity given to them by governments of multiple colours. They've had, it doesn't matter whether it's transport spending or education spending, big university buildings, all of it has gone to these big cities. And I was determined when I got elected that we weren't going to suffer that same thing. And, we've got a government that's on our side with that, right? So yes, levelling up includes money, but it's what the money's for. It's not just the things that we're using the levelling up fund to build. So one of the things we're using the levelling up fund to build is converting Newtown Mill into a UCLan, expanding UCLan campus.
University campus.
A university campus, right?
Isn't it, really?
Burnley is going to be the second biggest campus for UCLan after Preston. Right, that is something that no other town in Lancashire can say. We are a town in Lancashire that will have a full university sector. Now that means if you're that young person who doesn't want to leave home or can't leave home for any reason, you can still do a cybersecurity degree at a top university. You can still become a medical professional while studying in Burnley. And by the way, we've got a brilliant college that has expanded by almost £20 million in the last 4 years because we've been able to get money from the DFE. That's what levelling up is to me. It's expanding opportunity, and we do that through education, we do that through infrastructure. We make Burnley somewhere that people from outside our area look at and go, my God, that's an exciting place to be. It is constantly improving itself. It's a place that it's full of ingenuity and business startups and people who are proud of their home, for all different reasons. To me, that's what levelling up is.
I think that's a really good message, because we've had years of down and out, begging bowl, and just negative. And this is it transforms the narrative, doesn't it? So instead of being all poor old me, I need to get everyone together and we'll get Burnley and Padiham going again. You know?
And I think it's, you know, if I think of some of the reasons why I think, I'm not going to criticise my predecessors too much, right? But we've had member of parliament after member of parliament who stands up in the House of Commons and says how bad things are.
Exactly.
We are an engineering master town, right? We are where the Industrial Revolution started. There's probably not a civil airliner in the world, certainly with a major airline, that's not got some kind of part made in Burnley. Yeah. The Royal Air Force is flying jets with parts made here. The US Air Force is flying aircraft with parts made in here. You know, millions of cars out there have parts made in Burnley. We've got an aerospace sector and an engineering sector. We've got massive bakeries like Warburton's and Cherry Tree. We've got all of it. We should be so proud of what we do, and it annoys me, and I find it so disappointing when previous MPs stand up or stood up in Parliament and what I consider talk to area down.
Yeah.
You can want to fix challenges, you can want to make things better, and still be proud of your area and still talk about it in the way that you want other people to talk about it.
Yeah. Well, on that note, Anthony, thank you for...
I've just got one other thing to add, because there was one question that I saw that someone said, I don't think I'll answer it, and I am going to answer it.
Oh, yes.
So someone asked, there was a debate in Parliament in Westminster Hall on excess deaths, and someone asked why I wasn't able to go.
Yeah, why did you not attend the debate with Andrew Bridgen?
So that was the same time that I was questioning the Post Office Chief Executive and Fujitsu Chief Executive about the Post Office Horizon scandal. That's why I couldn't make it. If I could have made it, I actually would have been there. And Andrew Bridgen secured a longer debate in Parliament on the same topic that's going to happen at some point in the future. I saw him make the application to the Backbench Business Committee. He was granted it. So when the next one is, assuming I'm not in committee and something like that, and I've got to balance all my parliamentary duties, I will actually be there.
Yeah, that's a girl called Shauna. So you've got your answer
there,
Shauna. Yeah, perfect. Well, thanks a lot, Anthony. I've enjoyed doing this call. I hope you have. Yeah. And a number of people are commenting saying thanks a lot for this. Do it again, please. Well,
what would be really interesting is if you like the format compared, if you've seen the other ones where it's just me talking to camera and you prefer this kind of format, it's certainly more interesting for me having a bit of a back and forth. Then give us a thumbs up, and we know it's the like thing, and then we know it's preferred. But comment, let us know if there's things if you want me to do slightly shorter ones at 30 minutes because 60 minutes is a bit long. Then say that. If you want us to do a different format, say that. But otherwise, thank you very much. If I've not got to your question, if we've not got to your question, do drop me a message. Again, anthonyhaig.co.uk/contact. Let me know and I'll come back to you directly, and I'll try to go into the comments and just go through what people have asked, and if I've not answered it, I'll try and put a response as well. But otherwise, thanks very much. Have a pleasant rest of the evening. See you later.
Bye bye.